resources, land resource, whether it's forestry and land restoration, to carbon credits on the other side of the spectrum and associated with that. And in reality, even mine tailings restoration and everything that comes with that. So I think the beauty here is you're starting to make sustainability economic rather than a cost in its own right. That's also driving kind of sustainable economics and green industrialization, like a lot of the work we do in Africa. And that's actually encouraging a more accelerated move to net zero based on the financing and also the actions as well.
This interview has already triggered some questions within our guests today. And you. Today, to guide this essential session, I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Tabitha Mutonikor, and producer at CNBC Africa. The floor is yours.
And yes, it is indeed my pleasure to moderate this timely discussion on how Africa can merge digital innovation with sustainable development. We are joined by thought leaders who are driving impact at the intersection of technology, finance, and climate action. So we will explore how digital transformation can fuel the green economy, empower communities at the same time, and also unlock inclusive growth across the continent, because growth is very important. We are talking about digital transformation, green economy. So it is an ecosystem playing out all together.
Africa is facing an extensive gap in climate finance and requires an estimated $3 trillion US dollar by 2030 in order to be able to implement its climate goals and sustainable development goals. The outlook for climate finance in Africa, for example, private investment remains low in Africa. Currently, it's about only 14% of the total climate finance in the continent in Africa. This is partly owing to perceived risk and the need for smaller investment sizes. There is some growth in specific area. For example, there are more opportunities in renewable energy financing, green bonds, and public-private partnership. Actually, most of the climate finance rely on debt, mainly for adaptation. This raises concerns about fiscal sustainability, which gives high debt levels. Also, there is a need for a shift for more concessional financing, blended finance, and international cooperation to close the gap. Digital transformation is really the solution for this gap. Digital tools can enhance exactly transparency by improving data access, tracking funds, and creating platforms for investor visibility, which can help build trust and attract more capital for both adaptation and mitigation projects.
The reality of it is that any investment is made on the strength of a good narrative. When you tell a story, it becomes the bridge between data existing and the decision being made. And what we need are more decisions to be made. So now we need to turn these numbers into human choices. And so if, for example, we are attracting investors, if these investors can see concrete lives being changed, scalable models being developed on the African continent, measurable returns, we'll be able to move capital so much faster than even the need for that capital. But it means we need to be telling the right story and telling it in the right way. What this means is now we need to be able to merge the data with the correct sort of narrative that we have. And we need to be able to demonstrate good proof points that then begin to attract a lot more investors towards this. And in Africa, we haven't been telling our stories enough. If we begin to invest a bit more in being able to tell these stories, we become a lot more attractive to those investors. I think the sum of it all is that you don't just tell an investor what a project does or how it scales, but the idea is you also tell them what's in it for them, and then where capital sees impact and return, capital will come.
I believe Africa has everything it takes to be the next frontier when it comes to feeding the entire world. And just a good example is Rwanda. There's a story that came out today. They're starting to manufacture their own products. With all these global events that are taking place, they're actually shaping how Africa moves next, because we do have the right raw materials, but the issue is then how do we produce our own internally? Because I believe Africa has everything it takes to be the next frontier when it comes to feeding the entire world. Because if we could capitalize on agriculture, our own raw materials, then we are going to be on the front line competing with everyone else. We're no longer going to be, relying on aid from outside. So I believe Africa has what it takes to fund itself and feed itself at the same time. Funding and feeding, very important. If we fund ourselves, then we do not need external aid.
So just one final remark, key takeaway, what stood out for you, or what has stood out for you today? Amen. One key message that has stood out for you.
Which for Africa is really to cooperate inside Africa. We have all the possibilities.
Cooperation.
Cooperation And I said, lead to put human in the central, to focus on human. Human is the capital. There is nothing else.
I think all I'll say is that we'll only succeed when sustainability becomes, I think, a story that we all share. So powered by innovation, told through data, and then driven by people.
Spot on.
I want to say also thank you to our attendees. Our coming discussion to continue on Africa, Europe, and North America. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube, and get the information on time. Thank you for your time, our guest. I'm pleased to having you today, and I wish for all a good health and a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.